Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, you're checking out an updated Stamina Templar DPS build for the Elder Scrolls Online. And this is maybe the easiest DPS group build yet. I'm talking about 2 active skills and 1 ultimate is all you need to do amazing damage. You don't need trials gear, you don't need complicated rotations. This is it. Now, as usual, I will be showing off a 2-bar version of this setup, which does even more damage, and it's not even that more complicated. And as usual, we'll be going over all the stats, gear set options, skills, champion points, and covering both the 1-bar and 2-bar basic rotations. And all of that is coming up right now. All right, everybody, here we are back with another easy, simple DPS build for the Elder Scrolls Online, this time with the Stamina Templar. Stamina Templar is probably one of the strongest DPS classes right now, in my opinion, just because of how powerful Jabs is. But we'll go over all the details, starting with the buffed stats. All you really need is a potion, actually, and about 10,000 max Magicka, 18,000 max health, 36,000 maximum stamina, about 800 stamina recovery. Of course, you can increase that with different glyphs or group buffs. Weapon damage sitting at 4,400, so it'll be quite a bit higher if you're using the back bar. 60% critical, that does increase as well due to some of our sets. Now, since we are a stamina build, it's going to be 64 points into max stamina. Running the Shadow Mundus, pretty typical for a DPS build to maximize your crit damage and healing. Of course, we've got the blue max health, max stamina food. Now, in terms of your potions, we talked about it. Weapon power potions are going to be essential. Templars do not have any source of major brutality. That's the main weapon damage buff for ESO, so you will need weapon power potions. The weapon critical on these potions is optional, so you can actually craft potions that give you stamina, weapon damage, and health. That's another option if you're interested in a little bit more healing and health recovery. Now, finally, in terms of what race is best, well, this is a DPS build, so if you want as much damage as possible, then you're looking at the Orc probably as your #1 choice. This is great because you do get the 2,000 max stamina, you get 1,000 extra max health, which is actually very good. It's going to increase your overall survivability. Then you get weapon damage, 258 weapon damage from Swift Warrior, as well as some extra movement speed and cost reduction of sprint. This is just a very powerful option for a stamina DPS build. Now, some races that are very similar, very close in damage, that's going to be Dark Elf, for example, and Khajiit. If you're needing more sustain, then check out the Red Guard, as well as Wood Elf. Those are probably your best 2 options in terms of sustain. Now, let's go ahead and jump into the sets next. Starting with our first 5-piece set, the Deadly Strike set. This is the ultimate non-trial Templar set, in my opinion, Stamina Templar. And of course, some trial builds even will use this. It's an overall great set. And what we get is weapon damage, weapon critical, weapon damage again. And for the 5-piece, increase the damage of your physical, bleed, poison, and disease damage over time and channeled abilities by 20%. So this, for the Stamina Templar specifically, applies to Jabs. Jabs is called a channeled skill. That means that it's casted over about a 1-second duration with this animation where you can't do anything else. So that's the definition of a channeled skill that also works on some weapon abilities, like, for example, rapid strikes from the dual-wield skill line. So the fact that we're using Jabs on the Stamina Templar means this is pretty much your go-to set. And fairly easy to get overall, I would say. Now, this is classified as a PvP set. That means you can get it from the Cyrodiil town merchants. You can spend your alliance points on that if you have extra alliance points. But really, the easiest way is just to go to Guild Traders, shop around for this. Usually you can find several pieces on sale on Guild Traders. So that's what I would recommend. Now, what pieces are we using specifically? Well, I am using the weapons on the front bar. So I'm using an axe. That's going to be Nirnhoned. And then I am using a dagger with the precise trait. And then I decided to use poisons on my front bar. Poisons, by the way, since they are technically damage over time, those will get buffed by Deadly Strike as well. So you're getting 2 pieces of the set from your weapons, and then just 3 pieces from the jewelry. So neck, 2 rings. Obviously, weapon damage is going to be the enchant that you want for as much damage as possible. And the trait is really up to you. I've tested many different combinations of Bloodthirsty, Infused, Robust. I didn't honestly see a big enough jump from Robust switching to Bloodthirsty or Infused to really warrant the trait change gems, in my opinion. So you can just leave these as robust, and you'll still be doing a lot of damage on the Stamina Templar. So why not? Just keep it simple, right? Moving on to our second 5-piece set. Increases your weapon critical, and then you can stack that up to 10 times. And then at the max stacks, you get actually Minor Force for free. So you can see that this stacking effect can occur every half second. That means the Templar jab skill is pretty ideal to proc this because you have multiple hits each second. That means you're going to be able to stack this up very quickly, and you're going to be able to maintain the stacks very easily as well. Now, I like this in order to simplify the build because this means we don't need to run the Barb Trap skill. We're getting the main buff that we need, the Minor Force buff, just by using this set, as well as some extra critical damage. I think it adds up to like an extra 5 or 6% critical. It's not huge, but it does make a nice difference. And you got the physical penetration. This is just really an overall great stamina DPS set. I definitely recommend you pick this up if you have not. It would be probably easiest to use on the body like I have here. So I've got the boots, legs, hands, waist, and chest. Obviously, Divines will be the best trait there if you can get those, and then you'll leave on the stamina enchants for those. Finally, for the monster set, I think the best option still for Stamina Templar is going to be Celine's. This is very easily procced by jabs as well. You get extra max stamina, so we're stacking stamina pretty high on this build, which remember that does increase your damage overall. And then for the 2-piece, you just get that nice burst of physical damage. Does have a very short cooldown, 4-second cooldown. Means this is going to give you a pretty sizable amount of DPS overall. So that is what I would recommend. Of course, for the weights here, medium is going to be best. And that's because basically the medium armor passives, you'll get more cost reduction, more stamina recovery, and more weapon critical by running full medium. So keep that in mind. You want to go for 7 pieces of medium. Of course, if you have like a heavy helmet and that's all you have, then use it for now. But medium will give you the best damage and sustain. Of course, we've got Divines for the monster set pieces as well. Max stamina on everything. So that is the main setup. We've got Deadly Strike, weapons, and jewelry. Running Zogvins on the body with the Celine monster set. Let's talk about skills next. So I'll show you a basic 1-bar setup, which is extremely easy. 2 spammable skills and an ultimate. That's all you need. And that setup just obliterates enemies. It does so much damage because of how powerful Jabs is. And obviously very simple. So starting off with just a passive skill, Camouflage Hunter. That is from the Fighters Guild skill line. And at base, this is just giving us some extra weapon damage through passives. Major Savagery, that's 10% weapon critical. You're already getting that from your potion, so that's really not why we need it. The Minor Berserk is nice if your healer is not maintaining combat prayer for you, or if you have some downtime for that buff. This will make up the rest of it as long as you are attacking it from either behind the enemy or from the side. Keep that in mind. So that is nice. That's 8% bonus damage. But really, we're just using this for the passives. Again, you'll get bonus weapon damage from any Fighter's Guild ability that you have slotted. Second ability, Power of the Light. This is our Dawn's Wrath skill line. Third ability here. Power of the Light is the stamina morph. This does very good physical damage every 6 seconds, and it does a nice resist debuff on the enemy, so Minor Fracture, Minor Breach. This is going to be great for increasing your entire group's overall damage output. 21,000 currently on this setup, but that can now crit. That was changed, I believe, like maybe 2 patches ago. So this can easily hit for 50, 60,000 damage based on your buffs and your group composition. So really strong skill. You want to cast this every 6 seconds or so. You get nice passives from it as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then, of course, the main DPS skill, Biting Jabs. What else do you need, right? This does absolutely insane damage. It does have AoE potential as well. And the fact that we have high crit chance and high crit damage, each of those strikes has the potential of being a critical strike and just doing tons of damage. And we get actually even more damage from the Templar passive Burning Light. We'll talk about that in a few minutes also. But that's maybe one of the most strong damaging passive skills in the game. It's basically as much damage as an extra skill. And you get that for free by casting jabs as long as you're landing all 4 hits of your jabs in a row. Next up, we just have more passive and utility skills. Ring of Preservation is also From the Fighters Guild skill line, that's the second ability here. So you may use this for some healing. This does heal you and your allies in a circle, gives them minor protection, minor endurance. So it's a pretty nice group buff. It won't be part of your DPS rotation. It'll just be there if you need it. And of course, we do get bonus weapon damage from having this on our front bar. Speaking of more bonus weapon damage, Silver Leash is just for the passives. I'm not going to be casting the skill, though you could use this maybe for a bit of group utility. You could help out your tank, bring in some enemies if you want. But really, again, it's just for the bonus 3% weapon damage for Fighters Guild abilities. And again, speaking of Fighters Guild, this is going to be our ultimate Flawless Dawnbreaker. Gives you good physical damage up front, damage over time as well. That should be buffed by Deadly Strike also. And after you activate it, you get 300 weapon damage for 20 seconds, which is a pretty long buff. And it's going to help your overall DPS quite a bit. So we'll be throwing that into the rotation as well. So how would you throw those abilities into a rotation? Like I said, this is the easiest DPS setup I could think of. So buff with your potion. And then really just what we need to do is 1 Power of the Light, followed by 5 Biting Jabs. And that is literally the entire rotation. Now, of course, make sure that you are light attack weaving in between each ability. That just means throwing a quick light attack. That's going to increase your overall damage as well. And then when your Dawnbreaker is ready, you'll want to substitute your first jab with a Dawnbreaker and just continue your rotation. So that is the super easy 1-bar setup. Doesn't get much easier than that, honestly. All right, now the Stamina Templar does benefit quite a bit from throwing on a back bar rotation. It's a bit different than some of the 1-bar builds that I've done previously, where adding the back bar didn't really increase it too much. By adding a bow on the back, you'll definitely see maybe 6 to 8k DPS increase. So let me show you how that would work. For your bow, any bow is fine, though obviously the Maelstrom bow is probably ideal with that infused trait and the weapon damage enchant. That's going to buff your weapon damage well over 5,000, closer to 6,000 actually with group buffs. And you should be able to maintain that 100% of the time using our volley skill. So that's really all you need to make the 2-bar setup work. Now, in terms of the skills using 2 bars, I'm not going to actually change the front bar at all. This will be fine. And then on the back bar, very similar. We just are adding 2 damage effects and that's it. So 2 extra skills on the 2-bar setup, and it works very, very well. So our first new ability is going to be Endless Hail from the bow skill line. This is what we were just talking about. The damage is okay. The main reason why you want to maintain this is for the extra weapon damage glyph from your infused bow enchant. So with the 14-second duration, that just makes it the easiest to maintain that extra weapon damage buff. And then our other damaging ability, damage over time, this is going to be Ritual of Retribution from the Restoring Light skill line of the Templar. Now, this did get changed in the Stonethorn DLC, so I want to explain the change for you. Previously, this did damage and healing at the same time. In fact, it was AoE damage and healing, so it was really good for not only damage, but keeping your group kind of topped off in terms of their health. It was a really nice skill. Now, they did change that, where the healing has gone away from the Retribution morph, and now it only does damage. It still has the Purify synergy, though. If you need an extra synergy, it's okay for that. So unfortunately, you won't get the healing from this anymore, but the damage is still quite good. Even though this says magic damage, it does scale with your highest stats. So as high as we get the weapon damage on the Stamina Templar, this is actually going to be one of our top DPS abilities. So you definitely want to run this. It's also nice that this costs Magicka, so it kind of makes your rotation easier to sustain because it's a Magicka dump, right? Instead of casting everything with stamina, you get a little break by casting this ability with your Magicka pool. So that is it. That's the 2-bar setup. Everything else literally stays in place. These, like I said, these are flexible spots, you guys. So if you want to run more healing, you could consider putting maybe Echoing Vigor on your back bar for an extra group heal. If you have access to different sets, like let's say you're using Reliquin, then you'll want to replace one of these with Barb Trap, because you'll lose out on that minor force buff from the Zogvin's Warband set. Even if you're not running Trials gear yet, let's say you don't have Zogvind and you're running the Leviathan set, which gives you almost as much critical, then you can also put Barb Trap in one of these positions. All of these are flexible. except for our main damaging abilities, Power of the Light, Jabs, Endless Hail, and Retribution. Finally, for the ultimate, I had Flawless Dawnbreaker here. You actually want Empowering Sweep, and it's really not for the damage. Empowering Sweep does a lot less damage than Dawnbreaker, but the reason why you need this is for passives. You want an Adrix Spear ability on both of your skill bars just to increase your overall damage. Even though we're not going to be on this skill bar for very long, you do want some type of Adrix Spear ability here. So that's what I would recommend for the back bar ultimate. How would you then manage the 2-bar setup? Well, it's again extremely easy. All you do is start on your back bar with Ritual, cast Endless Hail, bar swap, and now the rotation is basically the same. Usually what I will do is 4 biting jabs instead of 5. That's just because I want to shorten the front bar rotation a little bit so my back bar dots don't wear off quite as quickly. So right there, I'm done. Bar swap back, hail, bar swap. And again, Power of the Light and 4 jabs this time just to make the rotation a little bit tighter. Now let's talk about passives. Some very powerful passives on the Templar class, both for Magicka and Stamina. Piercing Spear, this is one of the best. Increases your critical damage done by 10%. So this is how we get such huge hits on our biting jabs. This passive is essential. This is what we just talked about. So you must have an Adrix Spear ability slotted. On the front bar, it's going to be biting jabs. On the back bar, probably the best way is Empowering Sweep. Spear Wall is nice for the extra minor protection. You're going to get that for free anytime you're using biting jabs, so I definitely would recommend 2 points here. Burning Light. I talked about this briefly at the beginning. Anytime you use an Adrix Spear ability 4 times in rapid succession, you're going to deal extra physical damage. When you watch the DPS parts at the end, you'll see just how high this passive ranks. It outranks, honestly, a lot of our abilities on the Stamina Templar. It's that strong, and that's why we want to make sure we're doing biting jabs as much as possible just for the extra Burning Light procs. Balanced Warrior, this is nice for the extra spell resistance and weapon damage. Make sure you put 2 points here. Dawn's Wrath is interesting. Now we are going to get some nice passives for using Power of the Light. For example, Prism. This stuff gives you extra ultimate generation every 6 seconds, and guess what? Power of the Light, you recast that every 6 seconds or so. So this is a nice way to increase your ultimate gen, get out more of those Dawnbreakers. Illuminate is a nice group buff. So I would recommend this, even though you don't benefit from Minor Sorcery, this will benefit all your Magicka builds in your group, even healers. So definitely put 2 points here. And then Restoring Focus, this is just a great cost reduction passive. Make sure you put 2 points there. In Restoring Light, a lot of these apply to Resurrection. Since Ritual of Retribution doesn't heal anymore, a lot of these have lost their usefulness. For example, Mending, we're not getting any healing off of that skill, so you really won't benefit there. Sacred Ground is nice, having access to minor mending if you're running skills like Ring of Preservation or Echoing Vigor for extra group healing. Then you will have bonus healing from Sacred Ground passive, so that is nice actually. Lightweaver, you could probably save 2 points here. Master Ritualist is nice for group builds. This just increases res speed. So just make sure you have soul gems. You may be the designated res person being a Templar because you get to do that much faster. Now, in terms of weapon passives, you will want all your dual-wield passives. You want your bow passives as well. Those are going to be helpful. And then medium armor, you will want all of these. You can save 2 points for improved sneak. For a group build, you're probably not going to be sneaking. And then for our guild skill line, we saw that we are actually using quite a bit of Fighter's Guild abilities. So Intimidating Presence does give you cost reduction of those. That's great. Slayer gives you bonus weapon damage. Look at that bonus weapon damage, by the way. That's why I decided just to run with these Fighter's Guild skills, mostly for this passive 12% bonus weapon damage on the front bar. That is no joke. That's pretty strong. And then Banish the Wicked does give you extra ultimate generation. Skill Tracker, that does do extra damage against undead with your Dawnbreaker, so that's worth a point as well. For Undaunted, if you have this maxed out, make sure you're putting points into Undaunted Command, Undaunted Metal. Obviously, your racial passives pick up all of those, and Alchemy Medicinal Use for the extra potion duration. Moving on to champion points. In the green tree, 37 into Warlord, 21 Sprinter, 100 into Mooncalf. Then 56 into Shadow Ward and Tumbling. In the blue tree, we've got 14 Physical Weapon Expert, 61 Master at Arms, 72 Precise Strikes, 59 Piercing, 64 into Mighty. Now this is flexible. This is mostly supporting the 1-bar setup where we're using Biting Jabs. And Biting Jabs is buffed by Master at Arms as well as Mighty. It doesn't get buffed by Thaumaturge. If you're running the 2-bar setup, then you might want to put a few points from Mighty, Precise Strikes, and Master at Arms. You can actually dump those into Thaumaturge because you'll be using a few more damage over time skills, including Endless Hail and Ritual Retribution. So again, this is a flexible setup. And then in the red tree, 81 Ironclad, 56 into Hardy and Elemental Defender, 40 into Thick Skinned, and 37 Quick Recovery. In terms of the outfit style, this is going to be a mix of armor styles, heavy armor styles, I should say. For the chest and the legs, we're using heavy Yokuden. I believe for the shoulders as well, that's going to be Yokuden. And then for the boots and the gloves, that is heavy Sunspire. And then finally for the helmet, that helmet style, that's going to be heavy Worm Cult. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up our easy Stamina Templar DPS build for the Elder Scrolls Online. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. It's definitely the most powerful DPS setup so far, while still being very easy to play. So hopefully you found that helpful. And if you did, of course, don't forget to crush that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you're new here, make sure you're subscribed for more ESO build videos and guides, just like this one, with those notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. If you'd like to support the channel further, there'll be links to my social media and the new website down below in the description. Make sure you check those out. If you want more details on the build, there will be a written guide there as well, in case you want to see the alternate skills, alternate set options, champion points, etc. All of that is there for you. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.